was on the internet the other day and I found out, not to anyone's surprise, that there's a very few select group of people who fund the majority of political parties in this country, notably the moonshot pack type parties. And these people are quite happy to dole out hundreds of millions of rands every year to political parties. But I think, Byron, since this is retarded Danistan, this is a very retarded way of looking at politics.
I would agree that this is a retarded way of dealing with politics. Now, my main reason for saying that is because obviously what these guys do is they inevitably assume that the individuals that they're attempting to fund portray a culture that represents society as a whole. As an example, the white Karen in the Western Cape, as if that represents the whole of South Africa. If you want to fund political parties that cater to a specific segment of South Africa, you need to promote that cultural idea, the idea of who those individuals are, pretty much before you create a political party that caters to them. You can't sell a product to a group of individuals that don't exist. Create your clients, then sell a product to them.
Indeed, and they got this ass backwards, right? So I just realized Rise Mzansi, the political party that's going to get 0.1% of the vote, they've received 30 million rand over the course of their existence, which has been the last 6 months. That is a hell of a lot of money for a party that's not going to get a seat in parliament. Who on earth is the demographic for Rise Mzansi? No one that I know, right? You got a sort of educated black middle class kind of guy talking about real BEE and then sort of privatization, but like it's a party for no one. Yet has still managed to garner 30 million rand by, let's call it out for what it is, white libs, white male libs are funding all of these parties. But if you want everyone to be a white lib, or a lib at the very least, you need to create the cultural significance of liberalism first, before you can create the parties that execute on the mandate of being a liberal. Looking at it another way, Breitbart in America was around for 15 years before Donald Trump took on all the ideas of Breitbart.com and made it a political foundation for his run as president. But in South Africa, we just fund the parties without funding any of the things that create the parties in the first place.
Yes, it would almost be like the individual who promotes and funds the Republican Party without actually promoting and funding any of the conservative ideas and think tanks that go behind the party. Let's not forget that in Republican states, the culture typically revolves around conservative ideals, whether that be farming, whether that be church and family, whether it be gun rights, whether it be, demolition ranch, as an example, right? We don't have anything of equivalence, though, in South Africa, do we? We don't have a Daily Wire that promotes conservative thinking. We certainly don't have a Lotus Eaters that promotes liberal thinking. We don't actually have any of the cultural institutions that promote a certain ideal before we create the political institutions where those ideals and those cultures can be represented. Instead, we create the political institutions to represent a culture that in many instances doesn't exist.
It's almost like they want the political party to be the marketing agency for the ideas of that party. But a political party has to grasp what is already there in the first place and then execute the political mandate on that thing that exists in the first place. So if I was a multi-billionaire in South Africa, right, let's say I was Adrian Gore and I didn't care about the ANC because I thought they were a bunch of retards, I would say, listen, I've got R1 billion to spend. I would spend it on media companies, digital artists, content creators, whatever I want to foster this idea about what South Africa could be. You do that for a decade, you're going to build all these brands and creative brands around yourself, and then you fund a political party that accentuates and takes all of those ideas that were placed a decade before and put them within a political party. It's exactly what Donald Trump has done. It's exactly what Javier Milei has done in Argentina. It's exactly what Nayib Bukele has done in El Salvador. But here, we would just want to fund the truck instead of just building the road for the truck to drive on.
Yes, I suppose what really makes this really curious to a large degree is that a lot of these individuals don't really seem to understand the culture of the individuals that they live with. In other words, the culture of the majority of South Africans. The blacks aren't libs from Western Cape. I mean, this may surprise individuals. I don't know how. But they're not Western Cape lib asses. How do we know that? Well, because the DA got more funding this year than the ANC. If they get 25% of the vote, that's going to be mind-blowing. So how is it that they get the majority of the funding, but only 25% of the vote? It's almost like the ideals and the culture that the DA seems to represent don't match the aspirations of the majority of South Africans. So how do you fix this paradigm? Well, you have to make that culture that the DA promotes to highly, highly popular. You see, the problem is that a lot of the individuals that are funding these parties come from white suburbs where they mix with white individuals and white corporates, and they just assume that their peer group represents society as a larger whole. And it doesn't. We just don't seem to have any real cultural institutions that promote certain ideals that you could then market a political party to. There is, however, an exception to this remark, and that is AfriForum. So AfriForum have AfriForum TV. And AfriForum TV attempts to popularize Afrikaans culture. It has little documentaries on it about Afrikaners, and it has little TV shows about Afrikaners. So AfriForum as a whole recognize that in order to make their organization, their mother organization, which is Solidarity, grow, they need to promote and highlight and grow stronger in a person's belief the Afrikaans culture. Obviously, AfriForum is not a political party, but AfriForum have at least grasped the idea that in order to make their mother organization grow, they need to concentrate on culture. It's unfortunate that a lot of the political funders haven't grasped the same fact.
And what they do is a lot of political funders think the policies of those parties matter. And they just don't. They just don't. People vote on gut reaction. People vote if something is aspirational or interesting or fun. They don't care what the economic policy of Rise Mzansi is. If they find Zongezo CB interesting, they will vote for him. I'm not too sure pumping money into Rise Mzansi makes them more interesting. It just accelerates a policy message that no one gives a shit about. And by the way, Byron, if you gave 5 million rand to, say, the Freedom Front Plus tomorrow morning, are you going to see any repercussions for them from that? No. It's like a big black hole. It's going to go to salaries, and they're just going to do what they always do, which is politic. Like, what is the point at the end of the day? But if you give 5 million rand to content creators talking about Afrikaner rights and minority rights and whatever the case might be, you're going to create a viral moment that people can see and people can latch onto. That seems a far better use of your money than just giving it to an empty black hole like a political party.
The Daily Wire understands this very well, which is why the Daily Wire promotes itself as being content creators that promote conservative ideals. We don't have anything like that in South Africa, man. Like, there's nothing like that at all. We don't promote any form of liberal ideas. We don't promote any form of free marketing ideas. We don't even promote, we don't even have an alternative to Dragon's Den. The Apprentice. We don't promote business creation, entrepreneurism. We don't promote excellence. We don't have any of the cultural institutions that other countries have. And it shows, because when it comes through to politics, it's all about the politics of gimme, 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 and all based on collectivism, as, Millet would describe it. But with that being said, if you want to change the mindset of individuals, you can't just go fund a political party that says, vote for me, vote for me. You need to create the cultural institutions. You need to create the cultural understanding, the cultural education systems that mean that individuals buy into those ideas. Then when you have the guy going, vote for me because I'll protect your ideas and your beliefs and your culture, that's far easier to promote. That's far easier to fund. And that's where you get real regime change.